We're back with NJCAA Hot Hoops. Kenya, Dan Olson. Great to see you, Kenya, again. Happy New Year. Merry
Happy,
Christmas.
happy New Year. It's so
Yeah,
good to see you.
yeah, it seems as if it's been forever since our last show. And man, do we have a lot to cover. Some good basketball has been happening while we've been on the holiday break.
Yes.
So, we're into the grind time of the year now. Conferences are starting their regular season.
Mhm.
And before you know it, I mean, we're going to be in Casper, Wyoming at the Ford Wyoming Center watching some
Gonna be
national
here.
tournament games.
It's gonna be here. It's crazy
It's
to think about, but
yeah,
exciting at the same time, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed that's really happened here that I don't believe really has happened last year or in recent memory is we've still got a lot of undefeated teams at the top of our polls that have not been beat. I don't think they're ducking people. I just think they're good, you know?
Yes, I agree 100%. And
And,
I cannot figure out why McLennan, who has played who they've played, and they are 10 and 0, why are they ranked number 10? But
yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
guess they haven't really placed some of the heavy hitters like in Florida and such. But I mean, 10 and 0 is 10 and 0. They're having a great season.
they are. And much of the poll really has been unchanged. The top three,
Mhm.
Hutch, Northwest Florida State, New Mexico, they're right there. One, two, three. Dodge is snuck into four, and but there's some familiar names, of course, that have stayed in the top 10. But then there's going to be some disappointments as we move forward in today's show that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And hey, the same thing can be said with our Division Two friends. The top five are all undefeated.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten beat, and they remain Kirkwood one,
Mhm.
Johnson County, Essex, and Maryland, and Union, New Jersey, Lincoln Land, Illinois. Those are our top five. Um, we got two good teams though in Division Two that are in Arizona. Pima falls at number eight, and excuse me, at number 13. Mesa's at number eight,
Yeah.
and they were two national tournament teams in Division Two last year as well. So, you know, we always talk about a couple of kids that can kind of change your dynamics of your team and kind of are maybe running a little under the radar. But we've always stressed good guard play, the dominance of good guards on virtually every show that we've had. And today's no different. I was in Yuma, Arizona, right before Christmas, and I watched a
Mhm.
tournament down there. And it was an eye-opening experience for a couple of teams for me that I hadn't seen as much as I needed to. But Audrey Quintana is a Central Arizona point guard, kind of unassuming, doesn't really look like she can really do her thing, but wait till she gets on the floor, puts the ball in her hand. She's averaging 19 and a half a game this year. And
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why Central Arizona has really got a dynamite backcourt. They don't have a lot of size, but they play hard, and man, they can make some shots. So you talk about a spoiler in that region. Central Arizona could be just that, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And and then we have Shamir Quimby, of course, at Miami-Dade. She's up to her old tricks. She's still averaging 21 plus a game at Miami-Dade, a sophomore guard. And she's consistent. She's kind of a model of consistency, tough to guard. And so that's just two of them that we wanted to touch base with. We've talked about Quimby before,
Yeah. The
but
real deal.
uh, really no need to go into any misery index or who's won what or whatever because we've kind of like got all these teams that have been winning, so
Yeah. And it's the new year. Let's let them make
yeah,
it.
yeah, let's keep it positive, right,
Yes.
so
Yes.
um look, when we come back on our rewind,
Yeah.
we got a lot of games to talk about, and we're going to talk about that tournament in Arizona to begin with too, but some others as well. uh and in particular, one that we had play last night. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with NJCAA Hot Hoops.
Intensity fuels these champion student athletes to greatness. Zurich Insurance is proud to be the official provider of student athlete insurance for the National Junior College Athletic Association. Throughout the highs, we cheer along to their screams of victory. Throughout the lows, we support them through their tears of defeat. Zurich Insurance, helping student athletes play the sport they love.
We're back with NJCAA Hot Hoops. Kenya Landers, Dan Olson. Let's get right into it, Kenya. We got to talk a lot about basketball from the past couple of 3 weeks. We've had a break here for holidays, obviously, but in our rewind session, there's some teams that we're going to rehash about that we've talked about before, but
Yeah.
New Mexico had a good win prior to Christmas, 71-56 over Salt Lake. That was down, I believe, at New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And, they put 4 players in double figures that night. And Panya Davis, Florida State signee, she was the dominator, 12 and 16 she had that night. And, the beat goes on for New Mexico so far. Good game between Three Rivers and Pearl River.
Say that 3 times. Yes.
And Three Rivers won it by 10. And one thing I like about this, they're not ducking anybody. They're playing people out of their region, And Jasmine Jackson had
went
29
off.
and they had 3 in double figures for Three Rivers. But the difference in that game back then was the fact that the 3 ball for Three Rivers, they were 10 and 19. Per River only hit 4. So, that 3 ball, man, you can win and lose big time. Shot selection's key.
No doubt.
Here's another game. Walters State and Shelton State. They played before. Shelton won 67-50. If there's one team that's out there so far in non-conference play, Shelton State's got to be the leader of not playing any patsies. They're going after it, and I think that's going to really help them down the road. And their guard play was really dominant. They scored 37 of their team's points, and it's a compilation of good guard play. I'll spit it out and get it right.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, they put them over the top against Walters. So
yeah.
Let's not forget about our friends at Trinity Valley. They've had a few little ups and downs during the beginning of the year. They won a 3-point game over Mississippi Gulf Coast. I think this was in a tournament over at Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
And freshman Kenila Hooten, she's an Alabama player, 6'1", 6'2" forward center. She had 13 and 6 in that win over Mississippi Gulf Coast. And the Gulf Coast backcourt, they've got a tiny little dynamo that I've seen play for years, Taylor Felton. She helped, along with her teammate Caitlin Brinkley, 26 points in that loss. So they almost got it over the top, but Trinity Valley, they keep grinding,
Yeah.
and that's their thing. That's their MO. And Tyler, we've talked about Tyler too in the past. Now, Tyler knocked off Mississippi Gulf Coast too by 6. So they're trying to work to get on the, back on track. And I believe the other night, Odessa fell victim to Tyler. So that was a good win for Tyler.
Well, Tyler's got some kids that are coming back off some injuries, like she talked to us about a few weeks on the show. So them and Trinity Valley both, they'll keep climbing just in time to fight each other.
Right.
In conference play.
All right. Now, we had alluded to this game beforehand. Hutchinson is at home against Garden City. Okay.
Yeah.
And we said to ourselves, this might be an interesting game. And it was.
It was.
Hutch wins by 1. And guess who gets it done at the end? Haley Jackson.
You already know. You already know Haley was not
Yeah.
having it.
Yeah. 25 with 8 rebounds. Okay. Deciding factor, they made more free throws
Yep.
than Garden City. Garden City only made 5. Hutch went to the line, made 18, you know.
Which
But
is not like them to miss 10 free throws either. That's not like them at all.
yeah,
So it
they're
was
usually
it
up there.
was but Hutch, I just feel like Haley is not going to let them lose.
Yeah.
I think she is gonna have that MO all year long, and somebody is gonna have to do something unbelievable to beat them.
Well,
I think that is my thoughts on
write
them.
it down, February 12th.
Writing it
Goes to
down.
Garden City.
I'm writing yours down too that you
Greg
said it.
Franklin will be ready to rock. Okay.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
ready.
He didn't enjoy the holidays at all.
Nah,
That was bothering him, you know.
I'm sure of it.
Three Rivers turns around, beats Shelton by 1, 52-51 before Christmas. Kaylee Thompson, their star forward, kind of a bouncy, wiry forward, had 12 and 15. She lives off that weak side glass. But both teams got better off of that game. And as I told you, I went down to Yuma, watched the tournament in Yuma. It's southern Idaho. They didn't have a good weekend down there. They got beat by Central Arizona by 6. And as I'd mentioned to you before, the backcourt of Madison Holden, who's a new name to us, kind of an elusive playground guard, and Audrey Quintana, 43 of their 60 points came from those two players. So CSI took the hit twice in that tournament, so they were in the top
Still
10.
in the top 10. Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to stay in that top 10 this next
Yeah.
poll. We'll see,
It'll be tough.
Um, and then Arizona Western, who's got guard play as well. They turned around and beat Midland by 18. That was more than 18 at one point when I was watching it. So, uh, but our favorite name, or one of our favorite names, Naomi Zanzan Huey. I'm not saying that more than once. Hit
Don't.
27 in that game. She's a nice player going to UC Irvine.
Yeah. That's a good pickup for them. Like
Yeah, it is.
she's
She'll impact, I would think. So then our last game of note happened last night. And New Mexico was over at South Plains, had the game pretty much the whole way, a 2-point game, 4 points, 5 points. Um, they got knocked off at the buzzer. Isabella Jow hit the turnaround J in the lane at about 10 feet with about 2 seconds, 1 second to go. And New Mexico was up 5 with a minute and a half left, but couldn't hold on. So great game. It wasn't one of those long, wide open games. It was tight every possession, good coaching both sides. And I'll tell you what, Casey Antonio, the point guard, that's pretty much the best point guard out there in unsigned land as a sophomore. She put on a show last night. She was pretty solid.
I could not figure out why nobody snatched her up yet.
Well, it's going to happen. It may take, they're
Man.
sitting on until the spring, I guess, but
Yeah.
um, she's electric with the ball in her hands. She's she's kind of calmed herself down where she's more under control.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about a player that can get to the rim either off the dribble, in traffic, or in transition. She's
Yes.
one of the best. Yeah. So that's a synopsis. There's been a lot more games, of course, that we've
Too
missed
many.
that we couldn't even, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
But we'll cut it off at that. But that was a great game to end on, and we'll see what happens with our South Plains team as they probably move up in the poll.
Mm-hmm.
And New Mexico may slip just a little bit. But anyway, when we come back, Kenya, we're going to do some upload, talk about games of the next week ahead. when we come back on NJCAA Hot Hoops. We're back. Kenya, Dan Olson, Hot Hoops, upload. Here we go. Conference season is on us.
It's here.
With these teams playing like each other 3 times, like they do in Arizona and Florida and wherever else.
Yeah.
Get ready because we're going to have some upsets coming our way.
No question about that.
Just like
no
we
question.
did last night. Well, I don't know what to call it an upset last night. That was a great game.
Really good game, yeah.
And those are 2 teams that will wind up. I would be shocked if neither, one of them, if not both of them, make the national tournament for sure.
No question about that.
And but we've got a few games to talk about for the next week ahead. And our first game we're going to talk about is Eastern Arizona's playing our new friend in that league, Southern Nevada. Eastern Arizona, obviously, they've been kind of solid. Not as good as they've been so far yet. They're still trying to maybe find their way. Now, Southern Nevada's got a couple of players, including a Division I transfer that I believe was a Fullerton transfer, California, by way of Centennial High School. Saroy J. Ajumail, 5'11", wing, can stick the 3, nice player. She's going to help somebody next year at a Division I school somewhere.
Great athleticism. I mean, she's got a good motor. She's going to be a really good player. Yeah.
And got good size for a backcourt player.
Mm-hmm.
Pinola's going to Trinity Valley. An improved Pinola team. Trinity Valley's got to be on their A game.
Yeah. It's going to be time to get going. Like, we got to get through all the injuries. We got to get through all the we got to get ready to play. It's going to be
no excuses, just results. That's what it's called.
Just results. That's right.
Central Arizona's going to Cochise. That could be an interesting game.
Very much so.
New Mexico going to Odessa. So they got to rebound off their loss that they just had, and it ain't going to get any easier. Odessa's going to give them that full court heat for 40 minutes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Hutchinson, Kansas is going to be playing at Butler. And now Butler's got a solid group. He's 5, 6, 7 deep. He's good.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Butler much this past season or this current season, but yeah. And then Butler turns around and goes over to Garden City. Those are 2 important games for Butler this week. No time to relax.
None.
But those are 6 games that we just discussed. All of those teams could really wreak havoc among the national poll, and you never know. Could happen where they find their way to Casper, So, and of course, many more to go as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that we could talk about, but those are the 6 I think that are really going to be key games for the week ahead.
Yeah, this is when we first started in week 1, right? We talked about the preseason games. They were all of this that was happening back then was all to build up to prepare for right now.
Correct.
And so right now it's put up or shut up. Yep. we want to see what you got.
That's right.
Yep. So it'll be really interesting to see how all these games pan out this week.
Look, when we come back, our hot seat guests for the week, Michael Landers, athletic director, Navarro College in Texas. What a resume this guy has put together. He's going to shed some light on the NIL, the recent ruling. We're going to talk about that and the impact that it may have on junior college basketball, athletics across the board. Yeah. And someone that's both near and dear to both of our hearts. We're looking forward to talking to Michael when we come back on NJCAA Hot Hoops.
Intensity fuels these champion student athletes to greatness. Zurich Insurance is proud to be the official provider of student-athlete insurance for the National Junior College Athletic Association. Throughout the highs, we cheer along to their screams of victory. Throughout the lows, we support them through their tears of defeat. Zurich Insurance, helping student-athletes play the sport they love.
We are here with NJCAA Hot Hoops and our special guest on the hot seat, Michael Landers. I think we know that name well, Kenya. Wow, great to have you here, Michael. Michael's the current athletic director at Navarro College in Texas. And, I didn't know this as I looked through your resume a little bit. Your illustrious
spicy. It's kind of spicy.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know you did 6 years of men's basketball. Like, where was I during that time?
I did. My last 6 years of coaching were here at Navarro on the men's side.
Yeah. And your last year, you were smart. You got out when the going was good,
Exactly right.
25-7 your last year. That was pretty good. So you did well. I'm impressed.
It was a big change. It was a lot of fun. It was something I felt like at that point in my career was something I wanted to try, and I got an opportunity here with Rourke Montgomery as the AD. He hired me on, and it was a really good time for me. It was really difficult. It's very different than the women's side.
Yeah,
but it was a good time, and we were fortunate to win a conference championship in my last year, and I figured, hey, that's good enough, and let's be done.
Let's keep it moving, right? So, well, we're delighted to have you on today. And Kenya and I, we've talked about this in the past in our pre-shows, I guess, but it kind of really exploded after right around Christmas time was this new ruling in the NJCAA, NCAA about NIL and eligibility and that type of thing. And we wanted to get someone's unbiased kind of feel about this sort of thing from a different perspective from even what her and I would have. And so that's what we wanted to really talk with you about today, and just the overall landscape of what we're at,
Okay.
And Kenya, do you want to start off?
Yeah, Michael, we know like everything that you've done throughout your career. Starting at ETBU, coming in at the Valley. As I was leaving, let's make it clear, I did not play for you. People love to say that. In 2000, I was leaving with Kurt Bucky as you were coming to the Valley, and took over from him and just did extraordinary, amazing things at Trinity Valley, especially after following someone like Kurt Bucky. And so we have seen, and you have seen far more than myself, just the high level of players that have come and go within the JUCO ranks. And so, yes, we have some very, very talented players that are amongst us now. And it's just very interesting, this whole NIL thing and how it's all come to pass. And, everyone keeps asking the golden question, like, there are some really good players in JUCO. When is this going to trickle down to the junior college ranks? Are there some programs that are already offering some kind of NIL incentives in their own way for the players? And what are our thoughts about that? Is it equivalent to Division I, Division II? Is it something that junior colleges should really hone in? Obviously, we know it's apples and oranges compared to budgets and resources and all, but we just want to prick your brain and see what you think about that.
Obviously it's a very different landscape, and it's changing. It's not even changing year by year; it's changing every few months. And what it looks like now, what our coaches go through in Navarro and all across the country, is so different than what I dealt with in 2019. And I tell ours all the time, I don't know that I could coach anymore, just because junior college has always been a revolving door. You've got to, in a good year, you're going to recruit half your team. Because they're only there for 2 years. Well, in the current state with the transfer portal and just, I think, how we've evolved in sports and society, you had to literally recruit an entire team every single year. And you can have a freshman that's averaging 16 or 17 a game, and you think you've got an All-American coming back next year, and And next thing you know, they come into your office and say they're transferring and they want to go play more. And you're like, well, you're playing 35 minutes a game here. I don't know how many more minutes there are.
Yeah.
Obviously, NCAA has changed their rules, academic rules, their transfer rules, and so it's much easier to get a kid into a Division I school. And so it's really hard for a junior college coach to keep a kid for 2 years, which is what it used to be. You knew if they came to you, you had them for 2 years. It was your job to get them their associates. They play for you for 2 years, and then you'd help them move on. Now it is literally, it's almost every single player feels like it's one and done. In terms of NIL, we don't see it as much, and it's definitely not on the same scale that you see at the Division I schools. There are some schools in the NJCAA that use some form of NIL. I know Open Doors. Open Doors is a sponsor of the NJCAA, and they do a really good job of putting a product out to help student athletes. It's just not on the same scale because you don't have the same level of booster commitment that you have. You don't have the same alumni base that you would have at a 4-year school. And so you don't see as much that type of money put in to the players. Is it something I think that we're going to see more of? Yes. But you're not going to see junior college players, making $1 million a year that you see at, in the Power Four conferences in football. It's not going to get to that level, but I think you'll get to a point where we've got a number of kids that are getting a nice little check. I mean, I know my players when I was at Trinity Valley. I know my players here at Navarro. If we told them they were getting $500 a month for NIL money, they'd be in heaven. And so I think you're looking at more something along those lines and not the mega deals that you're seeing at the Division I level.
Yeah.
What about athletic directors in your place? Okay, in your space, you see a lot of these athletic directors, some coaches. They're pulling the plug. They're done. They retire. What's your take on all of that?
I mean, I get it because it's hard, and our jobs have always been hard. But nobody complained because it was hard because it was stressful, and there's pressure to win, and there's pressure to take care of your kids, get your kids graduated, and get them moved on, and that's still there. But the reason why I say it's hard now is we don't know what's coming next. We've got kids here on campus right now. With the Diego Pavia case that's in the courts, and the NCAA's come out and said that, every athlete that's a senior at Division I this year that played anything non-NCAA related gets to play another year. Well, we've got parents of our current players here in Navarro College saying, does that mean we have another year? And, we're having to tell them, listen, we don't know yet. It's still got to go through the courts. NCAA still got to decide what they're going to do. But I mean, if you think about the last 6 years, 5 years in college athletics and across all levels, we went from March of 2020 shutting down and nobody playing any sports because of COVID. We came back the next fall, and here at Navarro, we had players separated by dorms, and they would go to the cafeteria. Like our football team would go eat in position groups. So all the DBs would go at 5:15 to the cafeteria. And at 5:30, the D line would go to the cafeteria, And so you went through a full year and a half, 2 years of that, canceling games because you don't have enough people because you had half your team test positive for COVID. So we come out of COVID, and then the transfer portal opens. And now kids are leaving left and right. Kids are going to 3, 4, 5 schools in 3, 4, 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then now you add in the NIL to all that. It's a changing landscape. And for some people, I can see it if you're in your mid 50s and you're close to retirement, or you think you can pull it off and you want to get out. I mean, I can understand why people do that. I think another thing we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of our younger coaches that have been in the game, 10 years or so, and they're seeing how drastically different it is now. And they're saying, you know what, this is not worth it. I've got to retire. I've got to recruit an entire team. And this is at the Division I level where they've got to recruit an entire team. And they're like, I have no downtime. Kenny will laugh at this. I remember when she was at Oklahoma State and I was coaching Trinity Valley, and this was before we'd gotten married, but I would go up and see her on the weekends, and I used to get so mad because she had her little flip phone
It was a sidekick. Y'all remember the
sidekick.
sidekick?
She'd have a sidekick, and we'd be, having dinner, and constantly I hear the thing clicking open because she's texting with the recruits, and we get home that night and trying to watch a movie on the couch, and all she's doing is texting, and I would be like, "Hey, what do you like? Can you stop?" And she's like, "If they're texting me, I've got to answer them." Well, at least back then you had recruiting windows, and you only had to really recruit during those windows. Now, you've got Division I basketball coaches that are just like junior college coaches. It's the middle of August, and they're still trying to find 3 or 4 more people for their roster
Yeah.
for to move in 10 days, and
Yeah.
and that's a really stressful way to live.
Yeah.
And let alone recruiting their own players, because they got to
Yes.
keep them happy or they'll just enter into the
Exactly
portal.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. No time to shut it off anymore.
None.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
Well, you got me all to yourself now. It's good.
There you go. So, in the past, when you were at Trinity Valley, okay, and you really didn't need to do this at Trinity Valley because Trinity Valley had established itself as a marquee environment for kids to go knowing they're playing at a high level. But there's other JUCOs that were out there back in the day, not so long ago, that were using these four-year schools as a placement breeding ground. And it was successful for them. Do you think that's going to come back with the possible passing of this deal, this Pavia decision, where a lot of JUCOs now start to make deals with their area colleges that are four-year Power Four schools? Do you think that may start to develop again?
I think it'll come back in some fashion, probably not as prevalent as it was, 15, 20 years ago. I think it's a safe assumption, and this is just an assumption in my opinion, but I think we're going to get a ruling within the next year that, you can play at least 1 year of junior college and it's not going to count against your NCAA eligibility. There's a chance that it could be 2 years. My ideal or my thought would be you get 1 free year of junior college and it doesn't count against NCAA eligibility. If you stayed 2 years in JUCO and you actually got your associate's degree, then to me, neither one of those years should count. That way you're putting the student part back into student athlete. But if it comes to fruition that at least 1 year of junior college does not count against your NCAA clock or your NCAA eligibility, I think you're going to see the talent increase in junior college because it's going to be an opportunity for kids to go and play a year, not turn their clock on, get to be coached, get in a weight room, play against high level competition. And with that, I think you'll see schools that will start placing kids and pushing kids to go to certain junior colleges. The reason why I say I don't think it'll be as much as it was a couple decades ago is because of how much turnover and movement you have on Division I staffs now that you didn't have, back in the 90s and early 2000s. You would have assistants that would stay they'd stay on a staff for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so they were okay putting a kid in at a place because, they knew they were going to be there. Now there's so much turnover on NCAA staffs. Coaches are in and out in 1 year. They're just my opinion. They're recruiting kids. They're not recruiting for a program. And if I'm an assistant coach, I'm going to try to have 4 or 5 kids that, at a junior college or even high school that I'm recruiting and I'm recruiting them for me. So wherever I'm going to be at next fall, that's where I'm hoping that they come to.
Mm-hmm. I understood. That's going to be wild. I mean, you could potentially have a player earn 3 degrees within their college eligibility.
Yeah.
And they could be 26, 27 years old by the time they're finishing up.
I mean, very similar to TCU women's basketball right now, right? They have the highest age average in the NCAA women's basketball.
Wow.
And they have several, I want to say 3, don't quote me, 3 or 4 that they're on their third spot and they already all have their masters.
Wow.
Yep. It's so I think that what worries me, and I'm saying this as, I'm sure Kenya has mentioned it more than once on this show, but we have two daughters and we have one that's a freshman in high school, and thankfully for her mother, she's a really, really good athlete. She works really hard and she's got a chance to play, some high level Division I sports. And so as a parent, I'm a little bit worried. The high school kids are the ones who are going to struggle the most with this. I think, your top 50 kids, they're still going to go straight to Division I. But those kids that are, ranked outside the top 100, I think it's going to be harder and harder for them to get Division I scholarships coming right out of high school because, and it's not anything against their talent level, nothing against their skill, nothing against their potential. But if I have the choice as a coach, and let's say we've struggled the last 2 years and my AD has said, hey, you need to win. Well, if I have the choice of signing an 18-year-old kid straight out of high school or a 24-year-old Division I transfer, there's a difference in what their skill level and their ability is and their readiness.
Easy decision.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to hurt our high school kids until we all kind of find our way. And that's where I think the rule, if it comes to pass that you can play a year of JUCO and it not count against your eligibility, I think it's going to be great for junior colleges because the talent level is going to go through the roof.
I agree.
I think it's going to go back to what it was in the 90s when it was the talent level, junior college basketball in the 90s, junior college football in the 90s was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you had in our league down here in Texas, you had junior college football teams in the 90s that had 7, 8, 9 NFL players on their roster. Because at that point, you either were a qualifier and you went Division I or you went JUCO, and there was no other choice. And I think we're going to get back to that where the talent level in junior college is going to be so good to watch across all sports because that's going to be the best playing opportunity for those high school seniors.
Yeah. Because Dan and I have talked a lot about, since we're on the level of play, we've talked about the parity that we've now began to see here in women's basketball. Obviously, probably across the board, but this is our platform that we feel like we're experts on, right, Dan? So we talk about that all the time, that, you get ones getting knocked off by 3, and then you got somebody in the middle of the pack, 15, and they're knocking off 4. And it's just a level of parity that's happening. And I think, like you said, that's because several different reasons, but you used to have where certain Division I schools, you knew if their kids didn't make it, they were going to Gulf Shores or Gulf Coast or Trinity Valley or wherever. And that's all changed. So we have different kids that are just all over the map. And so I do agree with what you're saying about when this starts happening, you're going to have Division I's that are recruiting and even possibly signing kids and saying, listen, we don't have a spot for you right now, but we want you to go here. It's not going to count against your clock. So if we're talking about that, being someone that's won 2 national championships and have been to the national tournament more times than however many, how hard do you think it's going to change in terms of what does the national tournament look like? Is it as competitive? Is it getting back to that really, really high level of competition? I'm not saying that it's not competitive at this point, but is it getting back to where it was anybody in the tournament could win the tournament? So what are your thoughts about how that changes as far as competing for a championship?
Well, I think the NJCAA has done some really good things over the past several years of making the national tournament better. And what I mean by that is we took the first step, and I don't know, it was after I had quit coaching, but after I quit coaching on the women's side, where they added at-large bids. And it started out with, you get an extra bid per region, and they rotated them through. And that was fair, but you weren't getting the best teams there. And now they went to, the 8 best at-large teams as long as they weren't all in the same region. Well, now they've gotten rid of that rule where now it's just the 8 best at-large teams. So I think you're going to see better teams, more deserving teams get those at-large spots, which makes your national tournament better. I think that you've also seen there's been so many schools in the past 10, 15 years that have finally started investing in their women's basketball programs. And you've got schools all across the NJCAA that used to not be any good because they didn't care. They had a women's basketball team so they could say they had one. And you've got administrators that have done a better job of supporting their women's programs and making them important and giving them funding. And then I think you're seeing a bunch of good young coaches get into the business now, especially on the women's side, that have kind of raised the game because you've got an infusion of young talent on the sidelines. And because of that, you add in the transfer portal and you add in COVID that added an extra year. Like there's more players out there right now. And so if you've got a coach, you can take, it's always been this way in JUCO, but it's if you have an administration that will support your program, you can come in and you can flip a program in 1 year. Like it doesn't take 4 or 5 years to build a program. You can flip it in 1 year if you will hit the ground and you will turn over rocks and you will go find players. And there's players out there. And I think you're seeing that now. I'll give a shout out to him, but y'all had him on the show last year, but 8 years ago, I couldn't tell you anything about Dodge City's basketball program.
Right.
And Landon got in there. And he's got an AD that supports their team and gives them funding, and and now all of a sudden Dodge City's in top 5. And you still got your traditional programs, and New Mexico's been good for a long time. Hutch and Anches and them do an unbelievable job. They're still there. You still got Northwest Florida and Bart. You got Gulf Coast, Chipola, Trinity Valley. You've still got all those people. But you also look through the top 25, and there's teams that I'm looking at. And, when I was coaching on the women's side, I don't even know if they had programs.
I got to do research. I don't even know who some of them are. Yeah.
And so I think that's just good. That's just good for the game. And if you have, with this ruling, if we end up with a larger influx of talent, I think it's just going to make the game that much better.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited that this could possibly happen because we both know how great junior college basketball has been over the long haul. And wow, it would be like Christmas every day, that seeing that type of thing occur again would be great. It's all about the players and it's all about money now.
No, good old glory days. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that point because, you look at those teams in the 90s, absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if you were there, but I was sitting on the front row when this was back in the mid to late 90s. And it was, our good friend, Jeff Osterman, he's on the sidelines with Central Florida and they're playing Trinity Valley in the national championship at Tyler Junior College. And I'm on the front row. And I don't know if I've ever seen more talent on the floor running up and down at any level than those two teams that night, but with the product you see now, you see kids that are more skilled. They can do more things. Coaches have gotten better. There's a good product out there and people need to recognize that. And hopefully it will continue to grow.
Agreed. Kenya, anything else?
No, I mean, we could talk about this all day, right? Yeah. Like Coach said, the glory days and just talking about just the level of players, but the level of coaching. I mean, the game is just completely different now. I remember playing JUCO ball and things that I experienced. I mean, from being coach tough or you don't play so you don't eat. I mean, people would get fired for that stuff now, but that's what made us good players. I felt like that's what made us know we better take our business so we can get Long John Silver's instead of McDonald's on the way home. Like that was luxury for us, right? So it's just a different mindset. But as you grow, you evolve and things are different. But I mean, just so much knowledge. Coach, just thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your thought process on it. And we know how much you give back to the NJCAA and how involved you are. So we know that these are thoughts of yours, not of the NJCAA.
Correct. These are my opinions
So,
only. All right. I appreciate,
so,
you know, I'm a big fan of the show, but I'm going to put Dan on the spot real quick.
ooh,
Okay. Fire away.
I'm
Here we
glad you
go.
did say me.
I got two questions for you, Dan. All
Yes.
right. First one, your pick on January 7th for NJCAA national champion. You got Hutch undefeated 30, or they're on probably about 50 in a row at this point. You
13,
got
yep, they're
Hutch,
close.
you got Northwest Florida, you got New Mexico, Gulf Coast. Who you got? Who's your pick today?
My pick today would be Northwest Florida State. Having watched all of them thus far, they seem to have a really good balance of all their players knowing their role in a more defined way than they did, I think, a year ago. At least from the outside looking in, that's what I'm seeing. And he's got a lot of returners, and he's got great guard play. They can handle pressure, and that's my pick.
That one. All right. Second one, last one.
Yeah.
Best JUCO player you've ever seen.
The best JUCO player I've ever seen was probably, oh wow.
Don't worry, Dan. I don't expect you to say me.
I'm gonna throw. I got two names, and we could do this all day. My two names would be Shalonda Ennis
That's who I was thinking.
from Trinity Valley or Saudi Roundtree, Kilgore College.
Yeah. Saudi Roundtree, maybe. Danielle Adams was pretty good.
Danielle was pretty good.
Yeah. She was a show. But Sadia was, if Sadia was playing today, she'd be making a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
you
Without
know.
question.
That's with Shalonda.
Yep.
But that just goes to show you there's names that come to mind that nobody really knows, you know. Honestly, I'd have to regress on what I just said. Okay.
Okay.
Um, Palm Beach Community College. Wow, they had a player, and they had great teams back through the '90s, and I'm mistaking her name at the moment, but she played in the WNBA. She's one of the 50 best players in the league, in history of the league. Chicago area player, 6'4", that wound up going on and playing at Florida Atlantic when they just became a Division I program, and but had guard skills as a 6'4" player. She might have been the best JUCO player I saw. I wish I could have pop her name into my head. But all these players, I mean, there's names that we go on and on and on about that were just tremendous, you know, and you know, it's an awesome breeding ground for kids that they just really don't realize how they can hone their skills, you know, and how many great athletes, regardless of sport, have come through the NJCAA ranks, you know, and
All right. So here's what me and you are going to do this summer.
yeah.
We'll break it out in Hot Hoops season 3. The JUCO all decade teams.
We
Yeah,
talked
we
about that
started
last
that
year.
last year.
We did.
Yeah, but we haven't finished. We've got a ways to go yet. So I'd love your help. I'd love your help because those two names haven't even made our list yet. I don't think. Have they, Kenya?
Oh,
So that's how far we started back. So yeah,
would it be Kelsey Plum who you're thinking about from
no,
West Palm Beach? No,
no.
never mind. There's another, not the current Kelsey Plum, obviously. There's another one from back in the day.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
trying to search the webs.
yeah. I'm trying to remember her name, and it just escapes me.
Yeah.
But
All right. Well, I hijacked your show. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Oh,
fine.
we
We're
love that.
delighted having you on, and you've been a really good asset for us here today in talking
Mhm.
about this ever-changing issue, of NIL and college athletics. So, Michael, thanks again for being on today and sharing some wisdom.
Appreciate you both.
You
Go
got it.
Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Bye. Thanks, Coach.
As the second largest intercollegiate athletic association in the country, the NJCAA serves not only a pivotal role in college athletics, but in higher education. The NJCAA Foundation aims to move the association forward through resources, grant programs, and other special initiatives. Your gift to the NJCAA Foundation will make a difference and create opportunities.
Let's close Kenya for the week. NJCAA Hot Hoops. We're back in the grind of
Yeah.
conference play. We've had a lot of good information here today about NIL and about games from the past and what we're looking forward to in the future week ahead. Um, don't forget that we've got the national tournament coming up March 25th through April 1 at the Ford Wyoming Center. It's
Yeah.
covered by ESPN Plus,
Mhm.
all the games,
Yeah.
and it'll be an exciting time once again. And
Yeah, this time of year, like we were talking about, it's just the best time.
it is.
And it's gone by and it's kind of flown by. And by next week, we're going to be in the middle of January, and we're going to be like just a month and a half away from championship time. So
I mean, really, a week from now, you got about 5 weeks to really get it done.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
brings you up to the end of February right there.
yeah.
So
So
it'll
this
be an
is where the
interesting
getting
time.
gets good. Yeah, for sure. This is where it gets fun.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Ken.
another great show of Hot Hoops. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks, Dan, for being so awesome, and good to see everybody again for the new year.
All right. Likewise, Kenya. Have a good day,
All right, we'll see you
everybody.
guys next week.